This is the Running Channel podcast with me, Andy Baddeley, sitting opposite me with a beaming grin on his face and a t-shirt that we're going to have to come on to in a minute, Rick Kelsey. And then the rose between two thorns on my left is Sarah Hartley.
That's so true. The rose between two thorns.
Yeah,
do you like
me.
that?
Love that.
I think 2025 is going to see some incredible records. I've been telling you two this recently, but I think those records are going to be broken by some familiar but also some unfamiliar faces.
Yeah, definitely. It is going to be epic. So we thought in today's episode, we would give you the inside scoop on who to look out for in 2025.
And we'll also be covering the latest running news and answering your questions.
Let's get into it.
Ta-da! Hello. Good week.
Okay,
What?
for our audio listeners, we're going to have to describe what Rick's
Yes.
wearing. It is a lovely black t-shirt that says A, full stop, terrified, B, full stop, no idea, C, full stop, baby.
It was how I felt when I finally gave in and said, I'm going to run a marathon.
No!
No, I'm not. This is a t-shirt I got almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when I left a staff job at the BBC.
Yeah.
And all anyone ever asked me when in the weeks leading up to it was, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? What's going to happen? So I thought, I'm just going to get a t-shirt and wear it every day until I leave.
And so these are the three possible answers to, like, what are you going to do next? How are you feeling? So
A, terrified, B, no idea, C, have a baby. Did you have a baby?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Wait, hang on. So did you get that made?
I got it made.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
Rick.
yeah.
I thought this was some like weird like band merch that you were
No,
talking about.
Cool, eh?
terrified. No, but now I just kind of wear it out and about, and it's just how I feel when I'm sitting next to you two.
Oh, brilliant.
Lovely. How's your running going?
So, excitingly,
You've signed up for your first marathon or second marathon.
Because you encouraged me so much, I thought, I'm going to get out and I'm going to destroy the one pace theory. I'm going to do a conversational run. But I didn't have anyone to have a conversation with, so I talked to myself. I thought, I'm going to try and keep my heart rate down.
No.
I'm going to try and run 6 minutes per kilometre.
Uh-huh.
And I'll try to keep my heart rate in zone 3.
Yeah.
Conversational pace.
Yeah.
Just couldn't do it. I was up in 4. And you know what? It must be the terrain.
It must be the
terrain.
hilly North
The North
London
London hills,
Were
of
you
course.
talking then?
I was chatting to myself. Yeah.
Okay, describe.
Yeah.
Could you give us a little
Yeah, take us
example
through
of
it.
some of the things
I
that
was
were
like,
happening?
this hill's really hard. Oh, there's snow at the top of that one. Let's keep up with that Sherpa. Don't know why I did it in a northern accent.
Well, this hill's a bit high.
Yeah.
Right.
And I enjoyed it, and I didn't run my standard pace of 5:30 in my one pace.
Very good.
I
I'm
got
not
there.
sure it was 6 though, was it? I'm
think
pretty sure when I saw it on Strava it was 5:45.
Yeah, but this is because
Well, that's slower though.
That is slower.
I automatically, I see a bench and I go, oh, I'm like a rabbit.
Yeah.
I'll have you. You know what I mean?
To a
I'll
bench?
go to a bench or to a tree.
Whilst talking to yourself.
you have like little
I have
landmarks that you run towards.
right, I'm just going to sprint. Oh, there's a little bit of a bump in the road. Right, I'll try and speed that up. I can't help but speed up. And I was really trying to slow myself down.
Right.
Just like
Do
you can't
you
help
not
but
have
be
this?
motivated. No.
No.
Right.
Oh, well, then did you uploaded it to Strava?
Yes.
And did you give it a title where it said, tried out conversion pace?
Did I?
And then edited it afterwards to conversation pace?
If I did, I can't remember doing it.
I think I just saw
isn't
some
that
comments
convenient?
which confused me on your Strava. So.
I mean, that might still be there right now. But at least I tried. So I've listened to you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
I tried
And
to
what
do
did
some
you
running
learn
at
from-
conversational pace.
What did you learn from this experience?
That you've got to really focus when you're doing it, because that is just not natural for me. Because my body can basically do 2 runs a week.
Talking to yourself for an hour is perfectly natural.
That was fine. That was fine. I can do 2 runs a week. That's basically what I've got in my locker for my kind of my frame, my ability post surgery.
Yeah.
Do more than that. I can probably edge it up to 3 if I do an extra gym session. So I do keep that 50-50 split. But it was different for me because normally I'll go all out one day a week, and then the other time I'll do either a really kind of long run or I'll do some intervals.
Yeah.
Slowing it down to conversational pace. I was just like, wow, this is discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Actually,
key.
maybe we've hit on something. You need more discipline. You love the fun stuff and you're not so good at the disciplined
To be honest,
80% of
everyone
running
I've ever
stuff.
known in my life would probably agree with that statement.
I think you need. So when's your next conversational run?
Oh, it'll be this week, yeah.
Right, great.
Well, you need someone to go with you and make it an actual conversation.
Maybe one day after the podcast, the three of us should actually go for a run together.
Yeah,
That'd be
we've
nice,
been threatening to do parkrun together.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially
Not
we've
got
been
there.
threatening to do parkrun at the same time,
Yes.
Yeah.
not necessarily together.
Yeah.
I'll run it with you.
You two had some good running?
I've been back in the groove, knocking out
That
a
is
few.
great to hear, mate.
Although I did within a few minutes of me posting a run on early Saturday morning, Sarah had, or this is a previous weekend. Sarah had already commented like a vomit face because I used the phrase warm up.
Yeah. You know what I enjoy the most about our wonderful community is that, you know, I review most of the videos that go out on YouTube and will just let stuff wash over me. Whereas any time in life where you say the words cool down, I get a DM from someone being like, have you seen Andy wrote this?
Yeah.
So there was apparently an instance recently where you said cool down in a
Yes.
video. But on this run, you said warm up and warm down.
Yeah.
Were you warm?
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah. Oh no, I wasn't. It was so cold.
Yeah.
But I needed to warm down afterwards.
Right.
So I had to, for the last few weekends, I've had to get up early to fit anything in because of the kids' activities. So coaching football and getting people to netball and swimming and all that sort of stuff.
How early are we talking?
So a few weekends ago, or 2 weekends ago, I got up 6:30 Saturday and Sunday morning.
Mate,
To go
I've
for
been
a run
up,
at 7.
I've gardened, you know, I've been changed about 3 nappies by that point.
Yeah.
I've taken Herbert out for a little wee.
There you go, yeah.
4 a.m.
Yeah, well, it felt early to me.
Don't you sometimes go out at 3:30 in the morning, Sarah?
Yeah, so basically, I didn't remember this about puppies, but essentially, I crate trained my dog Herbert so well that rather than waking up and alerting us to the fact that he needed a wee, he would just wet himself in the middle of the night.
Oh.
So we now had to go to a new schedule rather than it happened once, and I was like,
Yeah.
this isn't good. So now I set an alarm at 3 a.m. He goes to bed at 10. I set an alarm at 3 a.m. Get out of bed, get him out of bed,
That's
very
discipline.
reluctant, take him out. He does a wee, then we go back in until his bladder's big enough that he can hold it for a
God,
full
you are
night.
doing a tough job with
Gosh.
Harold.
So I thought I was.
With
I thought I was pretty like. I was. You know, the big cheese getting up early
Yeah.
doors. on
No,
the
that
weekend.
is early. I mean, I still... The beauty of Herbert is that I've now trained him to sleep until late.
Yeah. So, but then I had to go out for. I did an interval workout on Saturday morning, and I did a longer run on the Sunday morning of the weekend that I'm thinking of. That had been the catalyst for this newer, better mojo in running. And then I went into football and all the rest of it.
Nice. And what's this leading into? What are you training for next?
I still haven't. At the moment, I just want to consistently train and feel like my body is not betraying me and that it'll let me do it. Because the first few runs back when I was trying to do intervals at faster than just an easy or steady run pace was a real. It hasn't been that long since I felt like I did faster stuff, but my body it's so cold at the moment. My body was just refusing to do it. So I'd go out thinking I was going to do 2 minutes at half marathon pace. And I'd do 10 of those.
Yeah.
And just the first 2 of those felt awful. Like my body was like, no, I'm not going any faster than this. And I was like, well, I need you to go quite a lot faster than this.
It is that cold, and it does change, you know, what you plan to do when you get out when it comes to your running. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks that I've got a slight tick on the metal plate. You know, I've talked about this before.
In your knee?
Yeah, about the plate when it equalizes with the bone temperature.
The temperature, yeah.
And you feel like it's like when they, but that normally happens in
Like a tingling. Fizzing.
Yeah, it normally happens at about kind of like 12 or 13 kilometers during a race when you're kind of going all out at a pace that you've probably not been training quite as
So in Malaga,
fast
basically.
Yeah.
In December.
It happened in Oxford. It happened in Oxford as well.
Yeah.
But even just doing 5Ks because of the cold, running in kind of like 1-2 degrees. I know that's nothing compared to Canada, but it's had a little tick to it, which can be quite disconcerting.
Yeah, I think you could be certainly in the cold. It's that classic one where my knee surgery was. I don't have any metal or plates in my leg, but you know, I've said this before, I'm sure. you'll read or watch those movies where there's some old sea dog who's like, when the weather changes, I can feel it in my knee. That's me.
It also kind of changes how you can run as well. Like I remember for the time trial I did a few weeks ago, I had like a 2K warm up, 180 seconds walking rest, and then went into it. And I ended up jogging a lot of that rest because I was like, I'm going to be so cold by the time I start this. So
180 seconds is a rogue way to talk about 3 minutes.
3 minutes. That's how it was written down. But yeah. Shall we talk about runners to keep your eye on?
We talked about ourselves. Now let's talk about runners to keep, because this comes off the back of last year in 2024 when we were very excited to go to the Olympics and essentially create an alternative Olympic podcast about track and field, because it's my passion. I've grown up in this environment and I'm excited about all of these people. But if you're listening to this podcast and you like running in some way, it's our job to try and make the people that are involved in running interesting.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but just try and give a little sneak peek. And then we're hoping that later this year we'll go out to Tokyo for the Athletics World Championships in September.
That would be fun.
Very cool. Yeah. Also, I think as well that like I'm definitely still learning. I don't know if you would agree, Rick, because you probably have followed it a lot more, but I'm still learning about all of the little competitions that are happening in the lead up to the big thing like the World Champs or the Olympic Games. Like one of the first people that we'll talk about will go through kind of records that might be broken this year and who to look out for in terms of breaking them on like the big stages as well as other events. But Keely Hodgkinson had an incredible Olympics. She now has her own event which she started, the Keely Classic.
So just as a recap for everybody, Keely is an 800 meter runner. She won the Olympics, won the Olympic gold medal in Paris, and she's run a phenomenally fast time of 1:54.61, which is the British record. But that puts her 6th all time and still 1.33 seconds away from the world record.
That's amazing. She's 6th of all time. But there's only 1.3 seconds.
Well, that's a long way, 1.3 seconds.
I know, but six people
5 meters or something
are in between her time and the world record time. It's tightly bunched, incredibly tightly bunched.
5.
But I
5. Well, 6 people overall.
I interrupted. You were about to tell us about her race that's happening.
Yeah, so she has started up, and this is why I want to talk about this as well, because it's not just, the World Athletics Champs where records might get broken. There are lots of different events happening as well. Keely has started an event this year called the Keely Classic, which is happening very soon, actually. It was being
Indoor
advertised
race.
when we were at the National Running Show a few weeks ago in Birmingham.
So interestingly, World Athletics have reclassified. They don't call it. So if you look down the all-time lists, there's 2 different lists for times. One is for outdoor, and then it used to say indoor, and now the indoor one says short track.
Oh, okay.
So do you know how long an indoor track is?
The 100 meter sprint is 60 meters. I know that.
Yeah, that's true. So how long? So the outdoor track is 400 meters round lane 1. So how far is it round lane 1 of an indoor track, of a short track?
Beep, 300 meters.
Nope.
250.
Nope.
Beep, 200.
Yes.
Woo!
200 meters. So exactly half. There are weird short, like the weird tracks in the US in particular. There'll be like there's an oversized indoor track which I think is closer to 300 meters, and there are some that end up being shorter because they're trying to fit them into like a tiny facility somewhere. But the standard distance is 200 meters.
Is it slightly raked as well, like sloped at the side?
Yes. So it's like a cycling velodrome around the bends in that it cambers. So it's and different tracks. Some of them have adjustable cambers. So some of them go completely flat and then they can raise up on hydraulics. And for example, because if you're running the 200 or the 400 meter indoor, you're going so much faster that you would want the track to be at a steeper angle banked around the track. Otherwise you can't get around it. But then if you left it at that steep angle to run the 3,000 meters, you'd just fall off because you wouldn't be going fast enough. So
interesting.
And then some tracks that are permanent, have a permanent kind of angle to them, will be better suited to certain distances because there are different angles.
Chances of seeing the women's 800 meter record broken in 2025?
Well, I mean, considering it must be what she's got her eyes set on, because once you've got the Olympic gold, that's the kind of next thing that you would turn your head towards, whether it will happen this year, 2026, or after. Her
big rival is called Athing Mu from the US, and they didn't race in the Paris Olympics because Mu fell or was injured or ill, I can't remember which of those things, at the US Olympic trials. And the US Olympic trials is so cutthroat that you could be the best in the world, but if you don't come in the top 3 for whatever reason, you don't get picked.
Wow.
So this year could see the renewal of that rival, which could make them slower because they could be more cagey when they race each other, or it could drive them on to faster times. So 1.3 seconds is still quite a long way.
it's, I know because you're an ex-pro and you think of times like that, but Sarah and I are just thinking 1.3 seconds doesn't sound
If you told me
much.
I needed to shave a second off, but then I guess I'm doing longer distances.
Yeah.
If you told me I need to shave a second off my 5K time, I'd literally be like, hold my electrolyte drink.
The equivalent. 800 meters is half a mile and 5K is about 3 miles. So you're talking about 10 seconds. It is equivalent over 5K.
Do you know when I look
I'd
at...
still be pretty confident.
Well, you go and do it then.
When you look at these records and, we talk about what's going to be broken in 2025 compared to last year, we heard about so many female records going in 2024. But your event, the 1500 meter...
Yeah.
The world record stands from the 1990s, doesn't
1998, Hisham El Garouj, 326.00.
Why has that stuck around for so long?
He was a phenomenal generational talent that was way faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
But although saying that, actually, when he set his world records in the 1500 and the mile, I can't remember which round it was, there's a Kenyan athlete called Noah Yen who is the second fastest in history, who was right behind him. So often you see these world records that are time trials where one person is so far clear. But certainly I can't remember which it was, the 15 or the mile. Those two were coming down the home straight, neck and neck. And Bernard Lagat, a US athlete that actually originally at that point would have been running for Kenya, he also has run 326 point something. But it has stood for absolutely
25 years.
However, there's also an incredible rivalry going on at the moment. Rick's probably favourite moment from the Paris Olympics was Ingebrigtsen versus Kerr with a surprise appearance from Cole Hocker. Yeah, absolutely taking the win towards the end.
When everybody went, who's Cole Hocker? and he went, oh yeah, he's been around. He had a good shot at this.
But do you not think, so that I wonder whether that one, so we're talking about the men's 1500 meters there, one of the most exciting events because we care about this rivalry, but because of how that, everyone knows what Ingebrigtsen's going to do. So that's an advantage for the rest of the field in that he's just going to go to the front, try and get faster and faster and faster. And then if people can't keep up, they can't keep up.
Yeah.
Or if people pass them like Jake Whiteman and Josh Kerr did in the previous two world championships, or both Josh Kerr and Cole Hocker got past him in Paris. You've got to think if Ingebrigtsen's almost unbeatable over 5K. But over 1500 meters, he was unbeatable, but now these guys have kind of found a way to beat him. So is he going to have to change the way he runs? And does that mean that they'll run slower times? Because he might not be the one taking it out like a pacemaker.
Well, what would that look like? Because the current world record's 326.
Yeah.
And Ingebrigtsen, like you say, currently the fastest man running.
Yeah, 326.73
in 2024. That's from 2024. So what kind of times are we looking at then, do you think, this year?
Well, they won't run... Well, I say that because they ran... Because of the way that Ingebrigtsen runs, they have been running Olympic records and things in championships. But
they're not getting close to the 99 record.
Well, I think they all ran around 327, 328 in Paris, the Olympics, which is crazy. So they're, at this point, Ingebrigtsen's 0.7 away, and we're talking about Keely Hodgkinson being 1.3 seconds away over a distance half as far. So that means that Ingebrigtsen is way closer.
So this one's more likely to go in 2025 than the women's 800 metres.
Yeah. Although, but what both of them have is Keely Hodgkinson hasn't been. She came onto the scene really young, but then she's been there for 3 or 4 years, and Ingebrigtsen's been there slightly longer, but they're both still really young. So that's why there's a really good shot of the perfect combination of shoe technology, a fast track surface, the weather, the temperature, whether you've got the right pacemaker or you've got the laser, the lights that flash around the inside lane.
But Andy, when you say that, like, the perfect combination of all these things, including shoe technology, and still the 1500 meter is set in these shoes that you were wearing.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing there's absolutely no, there's nothing to prove anything either way, and I have to be quite careful what I say, but El Garouj is running in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And if you think about what was prevalent at that time in all of the cycling teams, there's a lot of EPO use in that running. So there's no... nothing to show that El Garouj was cheating in any way. But there was, regardless of what he might have been doing, if other people were doing it, then that pushes all of the times because you're competing against each other and everyone's got to get faster. But I actually did used to, when I started racing on the circuit at that level, I raced against someone who used to train with El Garouj and actually, or maybe didn't train with him, but he was a compatriot from Morocco called Adil Karouch. And I think it was in a World Championship final that El Garouj used to often have a countryman pace him because he ran better, a bit like Ingebrigtsen. He used to run better on a really fast pace. So he'd have someone help him out and almost like sacrificed their race. I raced that guy. He beat me the first time around the Dream Mile. I think I came third and he won.
Oh, really?
But he subsequently tested positive for doping.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but in 2017, when you were still running, what were the shoes like then?
They were still kind of old school. They were better than the shoes that are in our podcast set just over my shoulder here.
Yeah.
That were essentially just cardboard. So the newer ones were getting a little bit more kind of bouncy and responsive. But none of the super foams still didn't exist, and there was no carbon plates.
There's no foam. There's super foam.
None of them. I mean, they were always innovating with foam, but throughout my career, the obsession was on saving weight, and that ended up being by making things more minimalist. So they just became less responsive, and you had to generate all the force yourself.
Speaking of shoe tech, we've spoken about in a previous episode how phenomenal shoe tech has been in regards to women's performance. So very likely that we might see more records broken from female runners in 2025.
Yeah.
We saw Beatrice Chebet broke the 5k road time and 10,000 metre track record. She also holds the 5,000 metre track record. So very excited to what she'll be doing this year.
Yeah, and then you combine that with someone who overlaps with her at slightly shorter distances, so Faith Kipyegon, and has been unbeatable over 1,500 metres for years and years. She's won the last 3 Olympics, I think, over 1,500 metres.
Yeah.
And briefly held the 5k track world record, I think. So if those two can keep... It'd be interesting to see whether they ever race other than at a championship. Or whether it's unlikely, in my opinion, that they would race ahead of a championship because there's no need to. And when they've both set world records, I think they've been more or less solo time trials.
One thing also very exciting is the lineup for this year's London Marathon.
Yes.
It was just released. If anyone follows Philly Bowden, she's running London Marathon this year, and she spoke about in one of her YouTube.
She's a British marathon runner, one of the top 10 fastest of all time over the women's marathon.
She stood in for you once on this podcast.
She did.
Yeah, she's been on this podcast. She was speaking about how she's running London Marathon this year. Super exciting. Originally, the kind of organisers of the elite field had said that they weren't going to release the kind of list of who's running until much closer to the event. So Philly had planned all of this content around the fact that she would have to bleep out, I'm training for this marathon. Yeah. But I think because of how phenomenally fast this year's lineup is, they've released it early and there's so much anticipation. Obviously, people could get injured. Might not be that this lineup is lining up, but especially the men and female field will be really exciting. So a couple of standout ones. Alex Yee, who you might remember from the Olympic triathlon.
He's the men's Olympic triathlon champion, gold medalist from Paris.
And he is running London Marathon. Also, Emile Caresse. He
famously runs with a old school kind of, I think it's just a like £10 Casio watch.
Love it. Yeah. So good. That. But he is phenomenally fast. And he ran 2:06.46 in London last year, which is his record. And the British record for the marathon is 2:05. So
yeah,
not
2:05.11 from Sir Mo Farah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex Yee is exciting because he's got real running pedigree as well. And obviously in the Olympic triathlon, you're competing for about an hour and 45 minutes. So clearly can sustain high output kind of aerobic exercise for that amount of time. So
this field that we've got for the London Marathon 2025, why do we think the field is so spectacular? Is it because so many of the big athletes are coming to the peak of their powers at this time? Or is it because there's a bigger draw to London this year because people feel like these records can go?
I don't know whether it's the record so much as London has a big draw as a prestige race and always has done. Yeah. People want to race in London. They also have budgets as some of the biggest marathons in the world. Prize money, and they'll be paying these athletes to run as well. So I don't know from a British perspective what the British athletes
they increased last year.
But like the prize money will be paid, but then also athletes are being paid to come and run, and there'll be a team of people at London Marathon and all the major marathons and other marathons like Valencia and so on, where their job is to secure the athletes and to negotiate with agents and to say like that these are the pacemakers that we'll put on for you. This is the people you're up against. And because you've got Eliud Kipchoge coming as arguably the greatest of all time, but no one quite knows what his fitness levels are at an injury and so on after Paris last year. And he's going to be the oldest in the field probably as he approaches 40.
He didn't finish, did he? Did he finish?
No, he dropped out during the Olympics. Yeah. It was a brutal race. But I think the Olympics is a really important factor here as well, because there were plenty of people who either weren't able to race in the Olympics due to injury, like Charlotte Purgey, for example. She's had a super unlucky few years, qualified for the Olympics with 2:22.17 in Berlin. She then had to withdraw after getting an ankle injury during her final long run. She also had to pull out of the 2023 London Marathon with food poisoning. So there's a lot of coming back with vengeance. Ailish McColgan as well. I feel like we've been speaking about her marathon debut for a long time, and everyone is so excited for her to take on a marathon. If she can get to the London Marathon start line, I think it will be so interesting to see how she performs as well, and really exciting to debut your marathon amongst such an incredible field of female athletes.
Yeah, and we all know how difficult it is to get to the start line of a marathon in one piece. So
Rick will find out more about that
maybe
later on this year.
Maybe. Well, but can we just very quickly, because you talked about the women there, if you just run through the four of them, I mean, there's more than this, but the four main women in the London Marathon start list as well. So we're a few weeks out from this now, but Ruth Chepngetich, the first woman ever to run under 2:10. She's now the world record holder. Tigist Assefa, the second fastest of all time. And bear in mind, she's run 2:11.53. Sifan Hassan's the third fastest she's running. She's run 2:13. And then Peres Jepchirchir won last year and holds the women's only marathon world record of 2:16. And bear in mind, like, for I don't know, it felt like nearly 15, 20 years, Paula Radcliffe had run 2:15 and she was 5 minutes faster than everyone else. Yeah.
What number were we going to see, do you think?
Do you remember what we saw from Sifan Hassan when she won it? Do you remember that? She like stopped to stretch and then still won.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's what's the most exciting is you have all of these phenomenally fast people that maybe we'll see another record break.
It's not Chicago, is it? We're not going to see a 2:09, 2:10.
No, I think it's too hilly for that. But
London is fast though. Like that's where Paula ran her fastest time.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible.
If it stays dry.
But it's like the track where I think it can go either way here. So putting all of the best people into one place to race either will drive them to heights that we can't even imagine at this point, or it will make them be really cagey and slow down and care about who wins more and not worry about the time. Or they'll go off because Ruth Chepngetich is famous for going off at paces which are ludicrously fast for the first half, or they could all do that and then they could all, drop out or slow down massively because they've all pushed each other so hard that they just, they blow up. And
is that the point, that it's so unpredictable that last year the London Marathon, the women only world record time was 2:16.16, but then we saw Chepngetich run Chicago in 2:09. 7 minute difference in the same year. In different marathons that are relatively, one's in April, one's in November. That's enormous.
But the women's only record, that's very different, right? So if you're the fastest woman in the world in a women's only race, and people can only take you to 20k as pacemakers, or 15k possibly, there's not many people that can keep up with you for very long. Whereas if you're in a mixed race where you can have male pacemakers that take you almost to the end or to later into the race, or you're surrounded by different people, that is a different racing environment.
That's interesting as well, though, isn't it? Of like just a 7 minute difference based on external factors, which goes to show like just how much shoe technology, paces, the mental toughness of a marathon all makes a difference. But let us know, email in podcast@therunningchannel.com. Who are you excited to see or hear about this year? Are there any other athletes that you want us to be talking about? Are there any other challenges that you want us to shout out? Let us know. Yeah, and any questions that you might have about that world of elite sport, or maybe just below that level. Like, is there something you'd like us to explain or to do a deep dive into? Then we will do our best. Definitely.
News this week has actually come from a suggestion from someone called Adam, and it's about an incredible feat by a runner from New Zealand. I'd be interested to see if you two have heard about this. Adam says, "Hi, I watch your podcast every week on YouTube, and I don't think you've ever mentioned this absolutely insane effort by a lady in New Zealand on Strava called Shannon Lee Litt. She started running a 50-kilometre ultramarathon every day last year and is still going this year. So she started in January 24, still going now. It's taken her Dubai, Australia, Thailand, and she started with an ultra in Whangarei. I think I've pronounced that right.
Whangarei.
Whangarei.
We're getting some expert pronunciation on the Kiwi.
From Owen.
Yeah.
Followed by runs in Rotorua, Hamilton, Mount Maunganui, and the Dome Valley Trail in Warkworth. So she's been doing this, and her days are spent running 5 to 6 hours every day, competing in an ultramarathon, defined as any event, of course, over a traditional marathon length. But then she works. She works in legal affairs, so at night she stays up working at night every day.
And also,
this is mad.
Also, her Strava's private, so it's not.
She's not doing it for the kudos.
Yeah, exactly. It's she's doing it. I mean, I actually don't know the full route, but it's an incredible feat. And if someone knows more behind it, or if somehow we can speak to her,
exactly. Because is it charity? No, she's just doing it out of the good of achievement. To try and achieve. All right, fantastic.
And having looked at her Strava, because producer Owen was doing some research on this and has been accepted to follow Shannon's incredible achievements. Seeing her progress chart on Strava and seeing her running 400 kilometers a week, it's literally like a flat line for the last 3 months is what you can see on there.
And
just
working as well.
Yeah,
full marks.
Full
absolutely
marks.
Amazing. So keep going, Shannon, and I don't know how much longer you can keep doing that for. I don't know what it would do to your body either. Like you don't hear good things about.
Do you think you would dial in, or do you think you would dial out and be unaware?
As in, do you think she's like can switch off completely and just kind of get it done?
Actually, sorry. Speaking of this, one other news item that popped up on TikTok and I thought was absolutely incredible. There's an artist, music artist, who's just done a performance art piece named Survival to go with his recent track and kind of music video that he's just released. And they've run 24 hours non-stop on a treadmill. The account's called Don't Get Distracted if you want to look them up. But basically it's a performative piece that people could come and watch, and they're in a like glass box I'm just showing Andy and Rick now.
Oh, and they're running away from what looks like a kind of James Bond-esque serrated clock wheel.
Yeah. But again, like I think there are two types of people in the world. People who have this kind of endurance mindset, similar to running ultramarathons every single day, literally being able to go non-stop. I was looking through some of the comments, unsure as to whether they did stop to wee or not. But yeah, absolutely like blew me away.
Performance art is interesting. It reminds me a bit of my degree. Complete waste of time.
Rick! Rick! You can't say that.
Sorry, I'm sure many people got a lot out of their degrees. Me, not so much.
Well, I think you were it was more the broad brush of dismissing performance art, wasn't it?
I'm sure a lot of people get a lot out of it. I definitely just take a spa day.
I mean, it's by the looks of it, this person sold a lot more singles than you have. I'm not seeing you getting 7.8 million views on any of your TikToks.
They've done well. Like I say,
But, if you want to see Survival versus Last Man on Earth.
Go for it. Yeah.
God, right. Next question.
Question from the club, Tom Henshaw. Hey guys, I have a few trail half marathons planned this year, but not really sure how to pace them because terrain, hills, etc. times don't seem too helpful. So is it better to try and stick to a heart rate zone? Any tips would be appreciated.
Great question.
We talked about this a bit the other week. Heart rate zone, trying to run within your heart rate zone, as Sarah and I have just done in a challenge a couple of weeks ago, is so hard, isn't it?
Do you know what? You
can train to do it. It's straight. It should be straightforward to stick it in a heart rate zone if you're on flat terrain. Yeah, and that's obviously the problem for Tom here, because you can train yourself. I always religiously, did exactly the same route every single Thursday for about 10 years for all my threshold runs.
Right. You know what Tom needs? Power.
Do you think so? Because we've done a video about this. Yeah, he could measure his runs by power.
So. Power. Have you ever used power on your watch? Rick?
Oh God, yeah. I love that. Sometimes I do a 500 power run.
500
power. Let's learn.
Come on, we've done this before. I'm not letting you get away with it.
What's power?
What's it measured in?
Watts.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Okay. So normally your power.
Oh God.
Hang on. When you're going up a hill.
Yeah.
Your power would increase. Your
Correct.
wattage would
increase. You're having to do more work.
You're having to do more work. When you're going downhill and you're letting go a little bit, your power would slow down.
Very good.
Yeah, unless you took advantage of the downhill and started sprinting, in which case you could maintain that.
That's like me and my parkrun. There are no flats. It's either up or down.
But Tom, what you could do with your power here is on the flat, you could have a look at the power output for the relative pace that you would run a half marathon at if it was completely flat.
Yeah.
Then you could try to stick to that power output when you're running up the hill. Only flag here is that the power measurement, if you have it on your watch, is measured by the swinging of your arm. So you can't look at your watch as you're running, because as soon as you've like held it still for long enough as you're tracking it,
you can set alarms though for the power, I think, so you could stick within a range. You could also use something called grade adjusted pace. So that takes your pace, and then certainly it's a Garmin feature. I assume it's available on other watches, where you can show that as a live pace field as well as looking at it afterwards.
That's cool.
So you could go out for one run and then look afterwards on your watch or your phone at what your average grade adjusted pace was.
Yeah.
And then try to set that as your target. And then your watch will, if you're going uphill and you're trying to run 6-minute kilometers, and you're going uphill at 7-minute kilometers, but it's quite a steep hill, it might tell you that grade adjusted pace is 6-minute kilometers, for example. Or if you're going downhill at 5:30s, that might say that's a 6-minute kilometer equivalent. Yeah.
Also, always track trail runs as trail runs on your watch, because it will help your stats if you have the two options.
Yeah, but I would say my main thing is not to worry too much. Go by feel. If you want to use metrics, then look at stuff like grade adjusted pace and power, but also just go by how hard it is. Enjoy the run and just try and stay at the same sort of level out of 10. It's obviously going to be harder uphill and on sort of more rutted terrain than it is on a nice smooth road. And
if you've got a few, then, practice with the first one. If you blow up, at least you know for the next one.
Yeah. And if you are doing a trail run in a running club, tell your friends about our podcast. We'd love them to experience it too.
Absolutely. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.